Right. Well, now I have the great honor of introducing our introductory plenary speaker. Andrew Cortes is the former director of the Youth Build Providence and the current director of Building Futures, in addition to being an active member of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters for the past 20 years. The experience in establishing strong connections between low-income, urban communities and the building trade unions during his tenure at Youth Build Providence prompted Andrew to create Building Futures in the spring of 2007. And we were so impressed with the work that Andrew's been doing that we've asked Andrew to serve on the Secretary's Advisory Committee on Apprenticeship, which we are convening our first meeting later this October. So we are very pleased and very honored to have Andrew Cortes here this afternoon. Thank you. Yeah, Andrew.
All right. That's a very kind introduction. With 45 minutes, I did prepare remarks. I wasn't going to wing it. But first, let me take this opportunity to thank John Ladd, and not just for the kind introduction, but for the leadership that the Office of Apprenticeship has demonstrated, as has the Department of Labor as a whole and on every level. That leadership is really apparent to me. It's demonstrated by the recent and important enhancements to the registered apprenticeship model. These changes allowed new avenues, new models, and new pathways to be opened. These enhancements extended the entire system. Shifts in regulation have taken place to ensure that there's efficiency and efficacy on every level of this critical workforce development system. These adaptations to the registered apprenticeship rest on an exceptional and solid base of past performance. Within the building trades, it has been the time-honored approach to developing complex skills. It is how trades have passed along the knowledge of their craft to the next generation of builders for them to adapt for the future. High-quality registered apprenticeship programs are a means by which a totally unskilled worker can become highly skilled while earning a progressively increasing wage, and often with important benefits. After completion, an apprentice achieves the original four-year degree and becomes the master of his or her craft and their own economic destiny. These are the first changes to the registered apprenticeship system since it was formalized in 1937 with the Fitzgerald Act, or the National Apprenticeship Act. Enhancements to a system that arguably was already the nation's best-kept workforce development secret. Its ability to advance the quality and skill levels of our nation's workers, to meet the needs of our industries and our employers, and to ensure their success with highly trained, qualified, and local people. And if ever there was a time in our nation's history not to keep secrets around solutions, it's now. To revitalize and create economic prosperity for us all, for their employers, their interests, the job seekers, their families, any and all effective methods must be deployed. Registered apprenticeship is one of the best solutions out there. I truly believe that it is one of the most important systems that we can deploy, and it has to be maximized by us all. And solutions aren't broadcast widely from within institutional silos, or working in isolation, or remaining disconnected. Solutions come from creating systemic change centered on the most effective approaches that are out there. And that only comes around by harnessing the collective talent of everyone. And isn't that the root of collaboration? Collaboration recognizes that we can achieve more together than we ever could separately by working in partnership. By its very nature, it is based on a foundation of mutual understanding and common interests, whether that's on a person-to-person level or on a system-to-system level. It is the foundation that we all need to adopt because that's the basis from which we adapt. So before I go any further, just wanted to take a moment and thank each and every one of you, as well as those who are making this conference possible, because it's a pleasure to be here with you all and to share in your company over the next 3 days, as a participant and partner, as a resource if I can be, and as a continual advocate for our adaptation during this time. I know that we can learn to maximize the power of the registered apprenticeship system, and that collectively we have all the skills and knowledge right here in this room to exercise what we learn here and put it out into our communities back home. And I'm not exaggerating when I say the power of the registered apprenticeship model. I'm not saying that to overplay the importance of why we're going to spend this time together or because I was paid. I can speak to the power of the registered apprenticeships through my own experience. So please indulge me for a moment and I'll tell you a little story. All right, so I was one of those many young adults that public education system did not connect with at all. One of those bored smart kids with other things on my mind, and I certainly had absolutely no interest in the bizarre social structures that get set up by young adults in high schools. The fact that you all survived that, more power to you. But towards the end of that seminal and singular year of high school, and I do mean singular in the sense of unusual in soul, not in the sense of exceptional or great, a friend of mine was returning to his native Nepal. That's the country he was from. So being the person that I am, I figured out a way to go with him. Now that was a formative experience. At the time, it was the third poorest country in the world, and as a 14-year-old kid, I had absolutely no idea what I was walking into. But there I was, and I could tell you, when you're in a remote village where you don't speak the language and you have no money, and you happen to be in a wooden cart in the middle of a rice field getting pulled by a water buffalo, you can appreciate the socioeconomic opportunities that we do have here in the United States, even in today's economy. Or the privilege that education brings us. Very clear concept, when the only way I could describe where I was from was by saying, okay, if you went all the way through India, that country right below us, all the way until you hit this big edge of a body of water, I come from across that water. It's the only way I could explain it. So being there, I saw a different level of poverty. Not that I hadn't seen it and felt it here in the U.S., but I can't begin to tell you the desperation that you'll find on the streets of Kathmandu. Food is being prepared next to raw sewage because there wasn't anywhere else to prepare it, while the bodies of the dead were being burned just a block away. So when I came back, high school seemed even less relevant to the world than it had to me before, as you might imagine. Not that I don't love education. I continue to pursue knowledge to this day, but high school was not the structure for me to pursue that. I wasn't interested in going back, but I was too young to legally drop out. I had turned 15 in Nepal. So, being the person that I am, I designed a state curriculum that met the state standards of California, had that curriculum validated by a high school principal, went and registered it and got it approved by the state of California, and I ran my own school out in the middle of the woods with myself as the only enrollee, of course. And then I came back to the Bay Area, and I took a high school proficiency exam at 16, and that's the age I was legally allowed to take that test, and I received my high school diploma that way. Okay. Well, having a high school diploma didn't open up a lot of doors, certainly not any career paths, certainly not then, and definitely not now in our 21st century economy. So I worked for a slumlord. I was doing maintenance on his properties in East Oakland. I was cleaning apartments, painting, shoveling gravel, repairing shotgun holes in the wall, whatever happened to be there. I wasn't sensing a well-defined career path. Looking around me, I could see the paths that my friends were taking, and those weren't working out so well. One was selling illegal drugs because he had to make ends meet. He met his own gruesome end as a result. Another one of my friends found his end, that final end, far too young of an age with street gambling, getting shot over something as simple as a game of dice. So I wasn't referring to the young adults now, just in case you were wondering. Those desperately on the job market with their master's degrees in philosophy. They're finding themselves, they're creating that skilled workforce for our great nation's coffee shops, right? But I was just waiting to turn 17. A mentor and friend of mine had shown me there was a different pathway to economic self-sufficiency, and a sustainable one. He was a union carpenter. Now, mind you, this friend, when I asked him why, with a double degree in mathematics and physics, he was a carpenter, all he said to me was, I like to be physically active, and I never want to be inside. Okay. But at 17, I could apply for the apprenticeship program in California. And the way you started was you actually found an employer who was part of the registered apprenticeship system, and then you had to convince him to take a risk on your potential. Both to work hard, and that would be very, very hard, and also to learn very, very fast, and at half the price. So it was an employer's gamble that you would be a productive and profitable tradesperson for the company. So I have to admit that can make you a little bit nervous. Not the interview where they do an excellent job of scaring you about how bad the work is, how hard it is, and all of the things that you don't want to hear. But it's the letter. They have to write this letter saying that they'll employ you if you get into the apprenticeship program. And it's still called a letter of indenture. An employer can take that concept a little too closely to heart, just for the record. But unlike my friend, I wanted more from my apprenticeship than just the hard physical work and the time in the great outdoors. I wanted the trade in total, its history and its traditions, the skills and knowledge. I wanted to understand the construction industry that my trade was a part of. I always planned on getting any other degree later. The degree I wanted first was that of journeyman carpenter. So my apprenticeship was with the United Brotherhood of Carpenters, and my employer allowed me to achieve these goals. I learned all aspects of my craft, from surveying the site in the very beginning to installing the crown molding on the way out to handing the key over to the owner. I stayed with that first employer for 8 years, and I was managing construction projects of $21 million in scope when I was 21. I moved to another employer because I wanted to be the lead Finnish carpenter in the restoration of the San Francisco War Memorial Opera House, which is a beautiful, beautiful Beaux Arts style building after the earthquake. I made that choice, though. My credential was nationally recognized. When I moved to the East Coast, I found employment. I went right down to Carpenters Local 94, and they found me a job. I bought my first house in Berkeley, California, when I was 19 years old. Now that is the power of the registered apprenticeship system. From where I was to where I am now, I credit to my apprenticeship. And I have only one of the stories. When there are 500,000 registered apprenticeships in almost 1,000 career areas right now. Each one has their own story, and so many of those stories are far more powerful than my own. Each of those apprentices has a meaningful career pathway to follow, which allows them to support their families and to build our economy. But the power of the registered apprenticeship does not stop at an individual level, or a community level, an employer level, or even at a sector level. If we truly harness the registered apprenticeship system, it will prepare for our nascent green economy. To me, that's an economic approach around the principles of sustainability. It's one that I view as an overlay to all practices that's just waiting to get integrated into the fabric of our society. The green economy has and will begun to extend through many sectors, industries, employers, and in the sense of preparing our skilled workforce for our own collective future, our ability to maximize the registered apprenticeship system has global implications. Because despite our current economic situation, one thing is guaranteed: it will not last. As far as I know, that's the only thing that's certain. Everything changes and nothing lasts. So when we take that long-term view and we look with our lens as workforce practitioners, we reflect on our approach from whatever perspective our respective roles gives us, and we find an obligation to ask ourselves, what are the skills needed by tomorrow's workforce, and how do we prepare? And this is where we can make a huge difference. We can help to put the nation on track. We can help put our environmental and societal future on any track. The industries and employers of a sustainable future will be looking for new skills in our workforce as they begin to reduce our carbon footprint or find new ways to conserve energy we expend, or they continue to develop renewable energy, or they develop new products that are based not on petroleum or toxic materials. And actually, I think if we just address the negative environmental impacts that we've caused as a society, we probably have enough work to sustain several industry sectors and enough to take us all to retirement. But I do believe that a far greener economy will continue to develop and manifest, not because we suddenly woke up all environmentalists, as much as I'd like to think that happened, because green is becoming a business imperative. Our global peak oil consumption, that's not a theory. It's fast approaching. The only debate is the